if we can convince people that our Black, trans, Indigenous, and POC folks' lives matter here, we can maybe trickle it over to the other parts of the world.
Content warnings for this episode include discussion of HIV, sexual health, anti-trans bigotry, hostile politics, murder, and racism. Genderful would like to acknowledge the Indigenous peoples and unceded lands that the producers, hosts, and guests live and have dwelt upon. Today, we honor the Coast Salish.
Hi, on TheyBae, we are honoring the Humanos, the Coahuiltecan, the Comanche, the Goyeka-Lapan, and the Tonkawa.
We honor the elders, the human, plant, and animal ancestors of these lands, and celebrate the living descendants of these peoples. May all beings tend these lands for the goodness of the next 7 generations and beyond. Meowdy folks, welcome to Genderful, a talk show interviewing gender-diverse folks about their special interests.
The name of our show celebrates that gender expansiveness is wonderful.
Hi, I'm GenderMeowster, and my pronouns are they, them.
Hi, I'm Atlas of Phoenix, and my pronouns are also they, them. The focus of our show is to interview trans, non-binary, agender, and gender-diverse people regarding their special interests, passion projects, and resources for the gender-diverse community.
We want our audience to know that this show is hosted by 2 folks who also identify as non-binary, transmasculine, neurodivergent, and disabled, with the passion for telling trans stories.
We invite you to remember that we are whole people with robust lives, friendships, challenges, and successes. We love and are loved, and we are delighted to share these stories with you.
As always, we kindly remind our listeners that no person is a monolith of their identities. Your identities can change over time and are valid every step of the way. And if you think you're gender diverse, you are gender diverse. There are no social or medical prerequisites to be included in the community. Welcome to Genderful episode 88. This week, our guest, TheyBae, they, them pronouns, is chatting with us about the intersection of trans rights and racial justice. TheyBae was very generous to sort of jump in last minute for us. And I think you only had a week or two's notice. And I'm just so thrilled that you're here today. So welcome to Genderful TheyBae.
Hey, thank you for having me. Again, I was really excited to join, so I did not mind.
Yeah, I'm so thrilled. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that I learned about you because I think Juice found you on Instagram. I know that your Instagram is pretty prolific. And we're dropping it in the chat regularly, but I wonder if there's any sort of introduction that you'd like to give for yourself.
For myself, I love to, every day I feel like I have a new way of introducing myself to the world. I am really just like a radical curator. I use storytelling. I use my loud, very voice to make an impact. I use cultivating spaces of Black and brown people in specific in the city that I live in because there's not a lot of that. So I love to call myself a radical curator. I'm from Hiram Clark, Texas. That's in Houston. Beyonce and Megan Thee Stallion are from there, very close. And, every day I find a new way of, like I was just saying, introducing myself, because I noticed there's something that I didn't realize that I was,
Yeah.
So yeah, as of now, I'm a radical curator.
I love that. So I like to ask my guests about sort of their gender journey in the beginning, because I know for me, there were not a lot of, especially non-binary gender diverse stories that were available to me. And so I'm curious, what are some things that you can trace back to your youth that indicated you might be gender diverse one day?
That's such a good question. Yeah, and to your point of growing up, it was, for myself, it was just, okay, gay. It was just gay and that was it. And so it was even the understanding of doing certain things, I didn't realize, like playing with my mom's lipstick, my grandma's lipstick, wanting to really wanting to like play in heels. And I guess I knew I had to start, when I knew it was something different, when had to start hiding it, you know, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm not supposed to do this. And so, but still was not said like, oh, the words gender diverse have not came into my vernacular and honestly into the world, I feel like, until like my early 20s. Like, you know, like growing up, it was none of that like possible about anything. It was just like, hey, you're doing something that you're not supposed to be doing. And so I knew when I was very young, like I just had these feelings, and I love my grandma's style. And she had these cute, like flats that I could wear. And I don't know. So that's when I just remember when I was just like, and when I say young, I was like 5. Like I just remember that time. And then like with my mom getting very like, hey, you can't do that. Don't do that. Like you're going to get, like, I remember the word saying you're going to get beat up. So it's kind of, I remember as a kid, just remembering having this, being this very feminine person, like no one, the word is non-binary, and knowing that knowledge of that and knowing about our non-binary ancestors, just really, I didn't have any knowledge of them. I didn't know that you could really be on, I didn't know, no one told me, no one explained to me about gender was a spectrum, you know, like it was just, at that time, I think growing up in the 90s, my mom knew about like Black trans women and knew the dangers that they were in. And so she just saw probably like, okay, wait, is my son going to be trying to dress up like a girl? It just turned into that. And that's all I heard, you know, like not like, why are you doing this? You know, versus like, it was just more of a fear. And so I knew at a very young age, I was different.
Yeah. So you've gone from that young person who wasn't sure if you needed to like hide your wearing of makeup or hide your various stuff, to the like glorious being that you are today. And I wonder if you would be willing to share with us about how your relationship to gender has evolved over time, because something happened from point A to point B to yield who you are now. So I'm wondering if you would share about that.
I think about a lot. I think about that. It took me a long time to own my transness, to own my trans experience. I remember like it just used to be indoctrinating to me. Like it was like this singular way that you had to be trans. Like if you had to, like growing up, I didn't even know that you could get HRT and gender affirming care like medically. I just only knew that you can get it from the streets, you know? And so like, it was just so like, so that's kind of already the way I thought about things. I was like, well, I don't want to go that route. So I always was like, oh, I guess I'm not trans, or I was even told I'm not trans enough, you know? So I had a lot of like, I had a lot of telling me that I'm just a gay, feminine Black man. And I had a lot of that first. And so I think to know me is to know the double Pisces in me. It does not like when people tell me what I am or what to do. And so it just was really agitate me. And like, I would be like, well, I don't feel this way. But growing up in Houston, like shout out to the Black trans folks that saw me in Houston, that embraced me and told me about Marsha P, told me about all these different folks that knew that we all had to be at the table. And so like, it really started making me just kind of like love myself more, like, because I was really kind of like just listening to others, because I was like, well, I don't want to take up a space, you know, like if I'm not, because I was not taking, I wasn't doing the things that the folks were doing to find their gender euphoria at that time. And I didn't know about healthcare, medical. I didn't know about that until I moved to Austin. So when I moved to Austin, it was cool to know that you can get it medically, and you know, like it wasn't just a certain way of like, you know, like there was options, and then there was options of where you can be queer without having, if you don't want to take HRT. And when I say queer, like you can be diverse, trans, and it was just like, it was just so great for me to pick up and read a book, to also just do my history to learn about those that came before me. And I just really started feeling a self-fulfillment of like happiness. I really, that's when that radicalness in me came in, when I was like, hold up. This is that people are really loving white supremacy because that's you're telling me that I'm not this just because I'm not doing that. And I think if we let go of the shackles of society saying what is what, and like knowing that queer is very, very expansive, and that you don't have to be this, telling me that I have to be a woman, just because like that's what, is seen and shown on TV is just really like aiding into the binary to me, and it's just very wild. So I just love I don't know. It's still something every day, and I still kind of struggle with it because some people are mean on the internet. They're like, oh, this person says that they're trans, but they don't have any, they're like, because I'm not like, I'm like, you don't even know what I do medically, so it's one of those things of just living out loud every day makes me like find my happiness of that.
Yeah. I really do feel like, at least for me, gender is a choose your own adventure journey. And just like you don't have to be on HRT to be trans, you also, like on the flip, can choose to be on HRT and be non-binary, but not like a more binary trans, like from male to female or female to male. Like, I can't tell you how many non-binary friends have like seen me start HRT, realize you can customize your body and still be non-binary, right? It's not like you're buying into the binary just because you chose a medical solution for yourself. And yeah, so you can absolutely be trans without any medical transition at all. It just takes a thought.
Thank you. A thought conversation with your medical provider, and also ignoring what the media already is like trying to pollute us with, of like of us trying to. There's already so much stuff that tries to make us hate each other and like hate within and like separating division. It's like kind of like literally like I love what you just said. It's it's your own adventure. And picking up a book.
What book was it that you read, or are there a couple of books that you read if folks want to read the same book?
I need to go and look. So shout out to Little Gay Shop. They have a whole plethora of different types of books, and I worked there as a side. And I have to look up the name of the one book that it was by Alok. I don't want to butcher Alok's last name, but I feel like we all are very aware with Alok. And
I have Alok's book.
Yes.
Over there. I actually had a chance to see Alok perform live within the last month or so. I was wearing a very good mask. And Alok gets on the microphone and says, "It's Alok, like joke." Just, anyways, I bought all of the books that Alok had there, and they signed those books for me, and it was very great. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and it was really, they were really, I remember them being like the first trans person I followed on Instagram. And because I was like, I saw me in the way that they like spoke with conviction, in the way they spoke about like breaking the binary construct of like everyone's thinking, even their own, in the way they spoke. So it was just like, I was like, wow, they're such a radical being, using storytelling, using just like their own lived experience. And I myself, I like to put on dresses just because, and I'm not thinking about I feel so happy. Like I'm not thinking about, oh, I'm doing this to be this way, I'm doing this to be that way. I'm doing this because I feel genderfully so good, and it's like, I'm not looking for acceptance. I just feel like we all should be accepted, right? Like, so it's not like it's hard to like come into the world, and I don't look for it. I just feel like to be kind, you're supposed to like, and I know that's like, it's such a fairy tale, right? Like, but it's just like, that's just how I approach my way when I walk outside. Like, I am looking like this and I'm not asking you to accept me. I'm just asking you to respect me, like, because I'm not looking for acceptance. So it's like, that part, it's like, whatever, like, I don't need you. I know I look good. Like, I know this is a good place today to go to Walmart in. But, like, I don't know. Like, and that's something too, just being free, which is sometimes scary out here in Texas, but just being.
We have a couple of trans Texans in the chat right now. They are deeply familiar with that struggle.
We are together. We are together. We are together in here. The trans Texans understand. We get a bad rep. I always tell people, okay, I truly understand now the things that they did, like with SpongeBob and Sandy in Texas. Like, I didn't understand that as a kid. I was like, we get bad rep, and people are like, why don't y'all just leave? I'm like, to be trans in Texas and growing up in Texas, what? Leave my people. Like, so shout out to the trans Texans in the room, because like people are like, leave Texas. This is my home. Like, like, we're here. Like, we're painting that white, blue, and pink. Like, we're not trying to do this whole. When I love when like trans Texans show up, because like I hear this thing where it's like, well, you can just leave Texas, and it's like, no, I can't, because there's people here. We're here. It's not like it's 50 of us and we're just being stubborn. It's like so yeah, when I see that with the Sandy stuff, I'm always laughing, because I'm like, we're not in a bubble though, I promise.
I know that Juice isn't here in the voice call right now, but I can hear Juice emphatically nodding through the keyboard. Everything you're saying right now. We're here, we're queer, we do what we want.
Yeah.
So good. So let me switch topics. Let's talk about trans rights and racial justice. So this intersection. What are some ways that racial justice issues intersect with the fight for trans rights?
Yeah,
it's such a huge question.
It is. I think people really forget about intersectionality when they're talking about rights in general, when it comes to Black and Brown, Indigenous, POC folks. And I think that like, it's very, very like shout out, like I always tell people like, cool. We like, I noticed that like white cis gay folks get really, really riled up for things that affect them. If that bar is about to close, oh my gosh, it's on Instagram, it's on this, it's on that. If that is, it's like, but when it's about these things that are affecting other folks, it's like, okay, like people are like, well, like with the drag thing, like, like with everything that's going on with the drag ban, those same folks that support it, that love to go there, are so quiet. They're so quiet about the drag ban, they're quiet about the trans rights, they're quiet about this, and they're always like, well, I go to the events, I go to that. But it's like not realizing, but also letting stuff going on in your state that affect Black people, Brown people, Indigenous POC people, like certain laws and stuff, and not supporting that is still being and still not helping us out, just because love to go to the drag shows. Like, it's, so that's where it's kind of like, to me, it's the intersection of it, like, because it's like I think about, like, I'm always like thinking about like how, like, when people are like, well, folks need to be at the table. Like, when you're talking about Black people, you're talking about this. When you're talking about disabled people, you're talking about Black people, you're talking about trans people, like, and so it's like, we can't forget about that. And so that comes into racial equality of, okay, so how can we make sure that these people, all these different communities that are marginalized, are being safe, which means that if we're gonna, like, when we want to tackle equality on disabled folks, we also need to make sure that we're incorporating the information that there's trans, there's all these different folks that are usually disabled. There's all these different folks that are, that are in the Latinx community. They're like, and I think about that a lot, how in here in Austin, where people don't show up enough for the right things. and I know we all have our own perception of what's right and what's wrong. And a friend actually was trying to kind of challenge me. I don't know. I'm still debating for friends. Was trying to challenge me on that. And I was like, you know what? You're right. So with right and wrong, it's more about like evil and good. And I think that like, what do you think your moral compass is by forgetting about people? Like everything needs to be ADHD compliant to me. I get pissed off when I'm doing something for an event or I'm doing something and like I can't do it no more. Or last minute it's like, or they're like, well, we don't have a wheelchair accessible for the stage. Well, what makes you think that only able-bodied people are going to want to or performers? Like, what makes you think like, and that's not fair, you know? And like, it just mind blows me. Like, and so I think about how more people like me, more people like you, way more brown people need to be in the rooms, like, to be honest. Like, and then honestly, the allies like you and the allies like that show up for us need to help us get in those rooms too. Like when it comes to like legislation, when it comes to coalitions, when it comes to all these things, because we are not like, our voices are not being echoed enough. It's just that like, oh, we just know this is going on. And when there's just like one, I'm not happy when I'm the only person in the room. I am not happy. I don't feel no boast. I don't feel like, yes, I made it in here with all the white people. I'm like, I want all my friends up in here. So, and all the ones that don't have the same lived experience as me, but they're underserved, you know, like I want them here to be at the table to talk about what they need help in. There's a bill going on right now, like that just was introduced. I have to look up the name of it. I wrote it down and I'm sorry I don't have it, but
It's okay.
link in the chat in Texas, where they want to teach third graders how to use tourniquets for battlefield basically style, for if there's an active gun shooting or something, but right now, there's also bills happening to focus on not having gender affirming care for minors in Texas, not having minors be part of any type of drag performers. So it's like, what the hell? And it's like, so it makes me think about like, okay, so what about the children? I literally thought about all the children that use walkers and that can't. What about them? So. And who's going to help them with the disabled tourniquets? And why is that even a thought? Like, why is that even a thought process to put that into the school system? So it just shows how disconnected the people that are in the room making these choices. Like, because I know people like me and others were in the room, first of all, the kids would be in the front of our heart. And we would not be banning, you know, their happiness, their euphoric. That's life-saving. That's life-saving medical care that we're talking about. And like, you know, and then I definitely wouldn't be thinking about setting my third grader up to help their bleeding out classmate. You know, like, again, what about the folks that are disabled in that setting? How do we tell a third grader to help them? Like, why are we thinking that? Why are we doing so much to lead with love? We're like literally like when I say we, those folks, like they're literally avoiding to be compassionate, to just be thoughtful of like that, you know, that white supremacy is not the leading way of a vital life. And it's okay to just say that. And I feel like that's what it gets me. It's like, we're not in the rooms. We're not in the rooms. People forget. So when we're not in the rooms, people forget about folks that are living with HIV, maybe didn't get chose. Well, a lot of us, I take that back. No one got chose to have HIV, but some situations happened where there's these laws that are hit against folks living with HIV, when some folks I know, unfortunately, that diagnosis from a sexual assault, from a bad needle, from things that, like, you know, we all like, in making sexual health and making a diagnosis you can contract in so many ways.
Yeah.
Armored against you is, again, people not in the right room. Like, I know if I know if the people that activate that, like the ACT UP folks, I don't know if folks know about ACT UP. I can give a good little segment on that another time, but they would not allow this. So it's like, but again, they don't allow those type of radicals in the rooms. They don't allow, they don't want to be opposed. And so it's just so weird how, excuse me, so it's very, I always say it's kind of, I don't like to say comical because it's not funny, but it's just, it's so rare. It's almost like weirdly
surreal.
Yeah, like apocalyptic fake reality, Black Mirror-esque, what's happening, how like we're just like, you know, being these Sailor Warriors, Sailor Moon Scouts, shout out to you, Sagi. We're supposed to be in peace. We're not supposed to be in this like survival of having to do this, but it's like we have to, you know, like, and I feel like it's something that people need to really remember when they're talking about Black Lives Matter. Yes, but so do trans lives, so do disabled lives matter. So all those. So when people say that,
which is also different though from all lives matter.
Very much so. Exactly.
You know,
and when people say that,
dog whistle.
You know, like it's exactly. When people rebuttal me with that, it's like, why would you? Okay, all lives matter. Okay, so when you say all lives matter, you really are just saying, like, they're really saying, like, yeah, so do white people too. Okay, great, and I agree. Like, but I'm not meaning the complicit white folks. Complicit.
Yeah, it doesn't take into effect or account rather the multiple pressures that come in from each marginalized identity and the tally of how heavy the weight of multiple marginalization is. Like, I'm disabled and trans. I'm also white. And people don't see my disability. And that's challenging for me because they don't understand certain behaviors or choices that I make because it has to do with my disability. And like, you know, I have the privilege of being on a stream team called the Disabled Content Creators Collective that was founded by a Black agender person who's also disabled. And so like my stream team is intersectional. And it's amazing. So shout out to Disabled Content Creators Collective. If you're on Twitch looking for people to watch, like come watch us. We're a BIPOC forward team. I'm very honored as a white person to be included. And, you know, we're working together for our mutual aid because you're so right that we have to be in those rooms where those decisions are being made because the alternative is what we're living right now. It's so hard. So, I found these two links that I'll include in the resources for folks later, but there are a couple of maps that you can look at, like equality maps, or like the ACLU is tracking the attacks on LGBTQ rights. And the state of Texas alone currently has 52 anti-LGBTQ bills, just in Texas. If you want to know about the whole country, it's a much larger number. It's like 400 and something, 450 or something like that. 474 bills. Yeah, I don't know which state is losing the biggest, meaning having the most bills. I don't know. It might be Texas, but you know, I think Tennessee was not doing great either. They've got 26. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, Texas has like 47 or something. I have to go back.
52. They have 52 now.
Secretly passed them too, or excuse me, they secretly introduced them. And like they don't tell, and so we don't get activated unless you're like really, you know, knowledgeable and have that understanding of to do that, which is too, because not everyone has access to able to do that. And like you see these bills that are making it into House, and you're like, wait, what? And like looking at there's this one bill that actually got introduced in Texas that in March, that it's the HB 1029, and it's relating to prohibition of funding for gender reassignment, like at all. And it's like no one's talking about that because it's like they're doing their best to be so silent about it.
Yeah. Well, they're inundating us with information.
Right.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. Yeah. Researching Texas bills. This is Augie who's writing in the chat. Researching Texas bills was the most depressing work you've done this year. It's ridiculous the amount of things they're trying to shove through. And Juice, who's another trans Texan, And there's a burnout that activists get when there's so many constant bad bills to fight. Yes, that's it. And so just this week, I saw a TikTok video of a Holocaust survivor that someone was asking them, like, are trans people in the States experiencing genocide right now? And the person said, absolutely. This is what they did to us. This is it. It's happening right now. If you have opinions about what you would have done to the Nazis during the Holocaust, now's your moment, people. This is it. This is our generation's Holocaust. We're living it right here in the United States right now. And absolutely, every layer of marginalization is another badge or stripe on your shirt. It's another reason to beat us up, emotionally, physically, whatever. And so you're absolutely right, TheyBae, that like when you throw in race, like every year during Trans Day of Remembrance, like there are so many trans women of color and gender diverse femmes of color that are on that list. It's totally brutal. And we do that event every year because we have to say their names. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just thinking when you said that, I was like, yes. And those are the ones that are documented.
Exactly. Yeah. There's so many more that aren't documented. Yeah. Juice is saying so many want to drive a wedge between LGB and T at this time. It's true. So TheyBae, I'll ask my next sort of planned question here. What do you feel is the leading cause to trans rights and racial equality being taken away?
Going back to what I was saying, the complicitness of allies, whatever. Because to me, at this right now, ally means really being one. So if those folks are saying that's what they are, the complicitness of that, because just telling me you are holding space for me is not doing enough. I really need you to I'm speaking for my state, call the Ted Cruz's, call the Greg Abbotts, call your, hopefully no one's in Florida. If you are, I'm sending you so much love. Call the DeSantis's, seriously, really. And then I'm good at making my my straight friends, my white cis friends feel guilty. Because what you doing? I would not be making you feel guilty if you was out here with me. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I didn't see you at the Capitol. And I mean, we all have our own different ways of doing things too. So I challenge that when anyone tells you like, well, you weren't out here with your picket, like don't go out there and protest. Fund something if you have the capacity to. Figure out a way. What I always literally tell folks, you don't have to do what the most radicalist thing, but you should figure out where you can align with that. You can be radical because you have the privilege to. So complicit white folks really are, and I say that with like no sugarcoatness. Like I'm not trying to be kind, mean, or anything. Just that it is that. Like people are always like kind of sometimes looking to the brown, indigenous, Black folks to like, what? We're getting beat up. We're getting killed. If you look on the Twitter, if you look on everything, when we stand up for when we get killed, 2 folks in Tennessee get kicked out. It's like, so it would be amazing if people started a riot, just like how they did with Ukraine, just like how they do with these folks. With us, with the folks, and I want that. I don't want anyone to be discounted. I believe that what was happening in the world is not okay with so many things. I just don't like it when it's like, but what about us? And so what's the leading cause of taking the trans rights is like where we see like countries are able to do this to this country. We see that states are able to do this to this state. So we're seeing that there's no boundaries. Countries can just do that. States can say, well, no longer to this. And so that's just really it. We're not, the folks that have the privilege to use their free speech are not. When they decide to, I hope this is okay to say, it's January 6th. Or January, sorry. Yeah,
no, you got it. The insurrection stuff.
I wasn't there,
where
so I don't remember.
A bunch of white people with guns decided to go to the Capitol because they wanted Trump to keep being president. Yeah, it's
passionate about that. So passionate. And so it makes me think about, well, I feel like if more people were passionate about others' lives, like when I think about, there's a bill going on right now that actually was done in 2017 that make it really hard for, again, brown, Black, Indigenous people of color to vote in Texas. So if I can't even use my freaking thing that the darn government gave me, so to speak, as to say what I would like, I can't even do it this way. So when I go out and when Tulsa happened and people started burning stuff because you didn't let them vote, it's like, which way do you want us to go? Like, you want us to, you don't let us do it the way you want us to. We can't walk up in the White House and talk to the president. We can't even now vote. So it's like folks really want us to be just so submissive. Why? If I have a beautiful child that is telling me, that knows that they're going to be happy, if I let them live their life, figure out their gender euphoria, and just be here on their journey with them, why would I just be like, because somebody tells me about what religious, I think really all of this is based on white supremacy and religious beliefs. Okay, like, why? That's not fair. That's just so weird of me, a hard way to process. It's so hard for me to process that, I would want my beautiful brown child to be safe. I would want them, and let's just switch the roles. If I was a white person and I fell in love with someone brown, fell in love with someone that was not white, anything that their family, their auntie, their grandmas, I want them to make sure I get the same thing. They get the same thing that I'm getting, whether that's affirming medical care, rights, all of that. So it's just, that's where I think about, I wish people said that. Like, I wish the Karens, the Julias, the folks that aren't those folks that the media has made just to be this person. I hear a lot of white women be like, oh, I'm not like that. Okay, well, show us that. Like, I hear that you're not like that. Well, show us. Like, I want you to be like, because why not? They just really need to flip the table.
Jesus was brown. You're referencing if flipping tables. There's a whole story. If she agrees in religion, but I'm not Christian anymore. But there's a whole story in the Bible about Jesus being mad about this kind of stuff, right? Inequality, and flipping the tables of the people who are counting their money on the tables. Like, nope, like, I'm literally going to interrupt your accounting process because you're doing it wrong. Like, this is not how it's supposed to be. Anyways, we were talking about, I didn't see you at the protest, and I want to talk about what are the different ways people can engage, because you're right that not everyone can be there. Like, I can tell you, especially when the Black Lives Matters protests were there was a lot of energy around it in 2020 during pandemic times. And, for me, it was a combination of, like, I'm disabled and I don't have access to a wheelchair. So I cannot physically go do the march because I can't stand for that long physically. I don't have it in my body to do that. But for my family, like, we did find ways to support those who are protesting. Like, we bought a cart, we put together a medical kit. Like, we found people who were doing that work and, like, funded them and gave them money and resources to do what they were doing, and, like, checked on them, and, like, a bunch of research on safe ways to do the protesting, like kind of clothes you need to wear, what kind of stuff, and share that information around. And so, like, there's a lot of ways to participate in those pieces. Even if you're disabled, even if you're whatever it is, right? Even if you're broke, you can be broke and disabled and trans and of color and still participate. Like, you just have to find your place. And so I guess my question is, what are the different ways of participating? So yes, going to the march, like, if someone wants to go to a march, how do they find out about that? But also, like, what are the other options? Like, I know that I personally sat and wrestled with that question for a really long time. I wonder what other answers you might have in addition to some of the stuff that I just shared.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I do too think that, like, as a disclaimer, anything first and foremost, thinking about your safety is very important in any way when it comes to, I don't like just navigating life as a queer person, gender diverse person, but especially when it's like, okay, I want to show up for my people, my friends, my family, but I think all that, you also have to think about what's safeness for you. And because like some people think, well, I can't, they instantly get intimidated by the idea and they think that protesting is the only way. But it's like protesting is so many ways. So like you can be loud as hell on your Instagram. If you're always posting flowers and rainbows and you're like, well, that's what my Instagram's for. Awesome, great. Change it up. Like post, be that, like post this, like, like, and don't just post just to post, like literally read. Like I tell my friends that don't, like, cause some things are like not even correct information. Like I get really excited. You just want to like, but really doing your work of like reading and making sure what you're posting is like, factual, like giving yourself 5 minutes or 10 minutes a day to like make sure like that I'm understanding what's going on with the stuff that I want to support. I love what you said about like the PACs thing, because when I used to work at the Kind Clinic out here in Texas, I actually did a protest PAC drive for the Black Lives Matter movement. And it was beautiful because, again, a lot of us, we're all working nonprofit. We all are kind of interconnected with the community. We want to figure out how we can show up. Some people, again, some folks are in wheelchairs. Some folks are in other not seeing disabilities to where that's not for them. It was so fulfilling for them to still be able to like make these packs for the people. So like, I always tell people, get creative. Ask those organizations that are supposed to be community focused, but are like, and they are like, have a board full of white people. Ask them to help your creative drive come to fruition. Like, challenge them, challenge these organizations, challenge these not the targets, but, challenge these folks that are right now doing the whole queer appropriation for Pride. Challenge them to help you help the community by asking. And again, like, and it's not one of those things where you might get success, but it's amazing to know that you went to sleep, said that you tried more than you did before. So posting, if you're on Facebook, I am part of a lot of like trans discords, trans Texas things in Facebook and stuff. So we all kind of can communicate like, hey, if you want to go to the Capitol but don't know anyone to go to, they talk about stuff like that. So if you don't have one, I always tell people, if there's nothing that's not out there and you find a need for it, it sounds like you need to be the one to be the one to lead into that. So make a safe space for your friends or for the people. If you got the money, donate. If you got the money, but I'm talking that to say that to your allies, say that to your straight friends. Us queer people really need to keep the money. But if we can, it's because I really resonate with the, like, baby, I got this extra $20. I want to give it to this so I just don't want it to be that like I have to extend myself or lose a meal for today to help out. Like, because I know that guilt, I feel like some folks that are non-Black or non-brown and Indigenous folks, like they feel like it's a form of guilt. They're like, well, I don't know. Like, it's like, it doesn't have to be don't think about it as a transactional thing. Be genuine that you really want a person to be supportive. Because sometimes I have conversations with friends. They're like, well, I showed up to your events. And I'm like, showing up to my events, showing up to my storytelling stuff is amazing, but that's not supporting my Black trans life. Like, so I always challenge them with that. Like, yes, that's amazing. You're showing up, you're putting money in our pockets, but caring about our safety is a whole nother thing. Like talking to those cliquey volleyball teams that a lot of our folks are in, and all the gay leagues, talk about dropping the card. I'm always like that person at the table, like blah, 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 blah. So it's like, I'm always like thinking too, wow, I wonder, it would be amazing if one of my like kind of trying to be progressive friends, like started being this annoying with their friends. Like, cause it's so be annoying to your friends that don't talk about it, that don't talk about abortion rights, that don't talk about, cause I should have said that earlier. When we're disbanding that, we're disbanding a lot of things. I can go on and on. So, yeah.
I'm wondering how to make activism a habit. So we were just talking about how important it is to have this piece and how you like to be, did you call yourself being annoying with your friends?
Yes.
Yeah. You sort of become a bug in their ear. And so, I'm reflecting on, I mean, this won't be in the podcast recording. It'll be on the YouTube channel though. The thing I said during my trans check-in today about how I have this new medication and now I need to have this whole new morning routine around it because of reasons. And so I was thinking to myself, for me as an autistic person, so if we bring in the intersection of neurodiversity in addition to trans and race and disability, I really thrive on habits and routines. And so I wonder if we can dream up what are different routines of resistance. Maybe that's the name of the chat book that we make about it, right? Routines of resistance.
I love that, because that's also like a way to like a nice candy coated way of saying too for folks, like a way to challenge your inherited prejudice and other things, because not just white folks have like that too. Like some of us have things that we didn't know that was like really just problematic to think. Like, so I love that, because it's like that's what we want. We want to resist the not so well thoughts.
Yeah. So, and maybe this is becoming a brainstorming session between you, me, and chat too. Like, I don't expect you to have all the answers. I love that this podcast is a space where we can have these kind of conversations and think about these things. So like for me, making the show is one of my routines of resistance. Like, uplifting various gender diverse perspectives with all of these other intersections of identity as well, because, for me, it's all about interviewing gender diverse people about their special interests, and that may include their additional identities. We've had trans and plural people, we've had trans and BIPOC people, we've had trans and neurodivergent people, so many trans and neurodivergent people. Like,
Great outshare.
and trans and disabled people. And so I like this question of routines of resistance. So, if I think about what are some of mine, so we've got this show. We've got Solidarity Resources, which is a combination of Discord announcement channel, and it's part of our Substack now. So we have writing that goes out regularly that disseminates information to do this type of work, but also about, access to different forms of care. So it's like, hey, did you know that there are a couple of states in the US that cover trans healthcare 100% from the state? Like I shared that with you in the pre-show, and like people don't always know that stuff, right? So that's another routine of resistance. Or like we've got like the Trans 101 short that I record that goes out once a week on usually Fridays, and it's like, this 1 minute blurb with information that people may or may not know. And so my goal with that is to educate our allies. That's why it's 101, not 201 or 404 or whatever. Gender not found. So yeah, I wonder, what are some other routines of resistance? Like we have mutual aid events, and I think we can get into not only are we working on planning those, but also like deciding the frequency those are going to happen. And so then it's like, this is just part of your monthly life, is like engaging in mutual aid efforts every month is just part of the deal. So I see Mirami's writing in the chat, each paycheck, if you can afford it in your budget, set aside X amount to give to a cause or mutual aid thing is another idea. Or send or write an email or a letter to a politician each week.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me more ideas that you have, TheyBae, for routines of resistance.
I'm a person that likes to give, I look at life as levels. And so like, I love like to like be like start minimal. So like, even if you're like, if it's something like a new thing that you're like, okay, I'm really trying to be more supportive and more, like you said, resistant. I think of like for myself, it really just being more informed was the first stickler to everything. When I just started being more informed, like yes, I understand the news is a little triggering. The news can be very like one wing type of thing, but there's other avenues of ways of like getting the information that you need, like following equality, following like newsletters that are trans and gender diverse folks makes, like yourself, and really like being informed on what's happening. That like there's this podcast that I listen to, it's called Up First, and it's basically you get like in your like basically like 10 minutes. It's on NPR, usually 14 minutes. Some of them are 14 minutes, some of them are like 13, but most of them, it's like, it tells you basically everything that you, instead of like reading a whole article, if you want to just listen to a 13-minute podcast while you're brushing your teeth and doing all that, it tells you about things that are happening in like Syria, things that are happening with the Palestinians and how they're being oppressed, and like things that you don't get to hear because Fox News ain't gonna tell you, Anderson Cooper ain't gonna about it, like and it helps you, because I know what it's like sometimes being queer, and all I'm only involved in is like what's happening with the laws right now here in Texas, and I sometimes have to remind myself, and I know that sounds kind of silly to be like, okay, well, let me look at other worldly issues that are going on to kind of like elevate from what's happening in my face, but I mean, I'm resisting from thinking that everything's okay when it's not. So I look and do that. And also I just think about I have a friend, he was so proud to tell me this yesterday. I know he was, because he's a cool white person from New Zealand, and he's gay and so supportive. And he was just like, I started doing volunteering at the Kind Clinic. And that's really amazing, because you're a software engineer that don't got to volunteer, but you want to be. And the Kind Clinic, just to give you background, is a sexual health clinic that provides free HRT, free gender affirming care to folks that are marginalized, and provides a safe space for HIV treatment and STD treatment, and getting tested and knowing your status, and all of this is free, and it's a nonprofit out here, and it really it's supposed to be focusing on the brown people out here in Austin. And it's amazing and I was literally just telling someone, I was like, show up, like Rihanna said, pull up, just think about things, because I'm a big on again, if you have $5 that you feel like you can send to a mutual aid, that's amazing, but it's not always about transactional things too. Like being a volunteer is just like giving them your money, and it's not you taking up a space either if you feel like you don't align with, say, the event or whatever's going on. I literally love when non-Black people want to help out with my events and break down a table. Thank you, reparations. Yeah. We're all, if you want to help, that's amazing. If you want to be a blog, if you want to write, I love when people offer, be like, hey, can I write a blog post about this? You can,
This is Neferkitty. For those who are listening later, Neferkitty has just leapt into my arms.
Paige might run. She might smell the cat from the computer and run up here. Yeah, showing up in so many ways, looking at your capacity too. How many, check in your spoons, it doesn't happen. And then again, there's levels, because once you start doing one thing, you're going to get activated. When I started listening to Up First, baby, I started really giving a crap about.
That was our swear. He used it. There it is.
I used it no more.
It's okay.
But I really did. I really started caring deeply about not just things that affected me. I really cared about the oppressions of everything around me, and how I need to, where can I support people? And so this karmatic energy will come back to my Black life. I think about it like that. I know that might be selfish, but I do think of it that way. I think of it, if I live this life of being able to show up for others, someone will show up for me. Someone will show up for my little sister. Someone will show up for, the the Trayvon Martins, that someone would show up for them. And if I show up for my friend, because I want to, you know, and like, and I think about it like that, like, how can I just not be, what was I not doing yesterday that I could do today? I love when someone said in the chat, by emailing, you could literally like get a template. And child, I know we don't like it, but chat, if we have it, we might as well use it. Chat GPT can make you a mean letter to your government. Promise you that. Like, if you don't have the literary skills, don't you fret. Chat GPT, use capitalism against them and use AI against them. Like, there's so many, there's so many ways we can do this.
That's really clever. You know, there's something I appreciated that you sort of mentioned in passing in that last sharing that you did about learning about what's happening in Syria or Palestine or other places. And I think that's another intersection that's worth pulling in, is this, like, you know, especially if you live in the United States, it is hard to realize, if you've always lived in the United States, how centric the American, meaning United Statesian, not North American, the American like opinion is on the internet globally. Because like, I can't tell you how much news and how much information is so centered on what's happening here in the US. You know, my friends in Canada, Germany, the Netherlands, South Africa, Japan, all over the place are constantly telling me about how they know more about American politics than they know about what's happening in their own country. Because our biggest export, frankly, is our media, which includes social media. And so, like, for those who live in the States, like, part of our work too is learning about what's happening elsewhere and caring about that too. At least having enough information to know what's going on, right? So, you know, we actually, I will mention this here because it feels very topical to all the things we're talking about. We do have a mutual aid event coming up at the end of the month for my friend Keemsey, who is a Indian South African disabled content creator who's like working on finishing. She's been in school 12 years and she's working on finishing her schooling and needs those sorts of accessibility solutions. There's been rolling power outages since 2007 in South Africa. Every day, the power is out for multiple hours, and sometimes it lasts for days. And so, like, I didn't know there was rolling blackouts in South Africa for decades, literally. And it took having a friend there, like, telling me about it and telling me how bad it was. And so, you know, this community, along with some other communities as well, are actually working to do something about it. And so we are going to have a mutual aid event for Keemsey at the end of the month.
And it's like, things like that have to get woken up from us being informed, right? Like, if you did not, like, if that didn't come from a channel of somewhere else, because again, when I travel, it's kind of like, it's so wild when I'm like, when I came from Mexico, it was Mexico, but then even before Mexico, when I was traveling from the Virgin Islands, it was like the news in the airports. It's like what? Like, you see it's like, it's wild, because it's like, wait, what? Like, you're like, how do I know this? Like, and it's like, you're like, whoa. There's so many things that they're not telling us, and they only want us to worry about, you know, why they won't stop gun laws. You know, like, they don't want us to worry about the stuff that we should be worrying about. And I was like, I did not know this was, I don't know, it was actually something happening in Haiti, and I can't remember what was happening, but the fact of it is like something, of course they won't show. That's a whole nother thing of them not wanting to show what's happening in Haiti, but like places like that. And I have people that I really, really, really love and care for that are, you know, Southeast Asian, that are directly from Jordan, that have helped educated me about the oppression that they face, about what happens when you're trans, what happens when you're gender diverse there, just even being part of the culture of the family, you know, like, so living there is a whole nother thing. And like, it's like, that's why it's so important for me sometimes when I'm like, y'all, if we can convince people that our Black, trans, Indigenous, and POC folks' lives matter here, we can maybe trickle it over to the other parts of the world. Like, that's where this is coming from. It's like, I'm not just trying to do this for me. I'm not just trying to do this for the Texans. I want this, like, for, like, you know, everyone that's involved. I want this for everyone that can, I don't know, that can feel that their life would be somewhat more safer if people knew that they were valued. And every day I see this stuff going on. Like, I shout out to ACT UP, shout out to my friends that teach me about stuff that happens in, like, you know, Syria, that happens in Israel. Like, I grew up with the news, but anytime I did see things about it, it was nothing about what was really happening. It was like, oh, this is happening, this aggressive thing is happening, but it wasn't like you know, like, oh, we're also oppressing these people and killing them and and helping out with the part, like, you know, that we're also aiding in what Black people just stopped having to deal with 20 years ago from the 1970s. So it's like just mind blowing to me that like, you know, people are having to fight for their rights like that in that capacity in a whole nother place. So, and so it's just like so apocalyptic to me to see the world like that. And so I just definitely aid in the people of doing your research about what's not just like, I definitely don't want to invalidate what's happening, say, per Arizona, but I also think that you get more activated when you see what's happening in like, you know, the places that you don't hear about, like the small places in Mexico, the places that, like, I literally told one friend, I was like, you should just look up the amount of trans murders that happen in the United States and also the trans murders that happen out of the country. And you would see why people are so adamant about having bathroom safety, having informed trauma medical providers. Like, it's like, this is documented deaths, first of all, you know, like, and like, it's like, so it's just all these things. I'm like, just, if you just did more research, you would see, you would see the gap in this. You would see the gap of, like, our lives are just not important. It's 2000, it's not even the 6th month in, and I had to, my therapist has really tried to has got me into the habit of not looking up how many Black trans folks have died every day counting, because I was really into that. Like, I had to keep reminding myself, they don't care about us. They don't care about us. And so I stopped that habit because it was kind of hurting my mental health, but also just like, it was a realization. When I was doing that, I did that as an example of, if that number goes down a little bit, cool. You know, if it goes down just a little bit, and it's just like being informed and really, really understanding that no one's life is any less important. And I think, like, I know that sounds so like right, like, oh, we all thought that way, it would be so easy, but if you have a friend that's talking to support your friends too. There's some of our friends that talk about being in the policy and politics, but they don't have the support. Like, there's some we need more trans, gender diverse people up at the Hill. You know, like, support your friend's dream. Don't tear them down either. Like, some of us, like, I mean, I don't support any of my friends wanting to be a cop now. But, you know, I also challenge that if that came up, like, okay, you want to be a savior, you want to help the folks, let's figure out how we can get you to use that. Like, you know, I challenge that. So I always try to help aspire when I hear people wanting to do stuff. I'm like, okay, I think, one, you need to be seen and you need to be valued. So uplift your friends, uplift these organizations that need it. Like, sometimes I think about like the shout out to Algo that saved my life. This is an organization out here that focuses specifically on the Latinx and the Black and Brown community in Austin, with different holistic services and services like that. Like, they need support. They need, like, people to look at them. So I just think about like doing your research of like the people that are really active in the community that like could use the support.
So Gothic Pluto, who's actually, remember when I told you about the Disabled Content Creators Collective? Gothic Pluto is one of my stream teammates. So Pluto chimed in a great transition to our next question. Pluto says, also, something that can be such an act of routine resistance is genuine self-care and rest, because you cannot pour from an empty cup. So I would love to take a moment and talk about ways to practice self-care while keeping our activism alive, because like it feels like we have to find rest while we're running. Like we have to find those moments and practices of care, rejuvenation, and frankly joy, because there's so much out there that kind of can beat us up mentally. And so routines of resistance are crucial for not only us as trans people, but also for our allies. But what's very important for us, the people who are like the activists on the front lines, like shaking it up, doing the stuff, is finding the ways to do both the care and the resisting. Because I know for me, I can get into these moments where I feel like there's so much that's wrong that needs to be addressed, that I can either one, get overwhelmed to get frozen because there's so much to do and where do I even start? And the answer for me is usually I focus on friendship and love, because that is the kind of spirit that I have, and that's the room I have. And so my resistance tends to be centered around mutual aid for trans surgeries and helping like trans and disabled people, often also who are of color, because we, like Gender Federation, my stream team, like prioritizes people of color, mutual aid recipients over white people. And so like, it's for me, at least, it feels so paralyzing and powerless to focus on the political pieces. But what I can focus on is the social justice pieces of like, I don't feel like I can fix the policy that makes it so that we don't have access to care. Like, if someone slides me a petition, I will sign it. I will send it to everybody I know, whatever. But what I can focus on is like organizing mutual aid events and have the community do for us what our governments are failing to do for us, which is pay for the medical care that we need to be alive and thrive. And so, housing has also come up a few times. Mutual aid around housing stuff for various trans community members has come up. So we do some of that too. It's not the focus of Gender Federation. So when that happens, it's like, okay, this will be a GenderMeowster event. Like, the Federation is really focused on the surgery stuff. I don't know, like that, the grassroots, like focused on the hyper local and responding to the needs of those, like it's an online community, so it's also international, but it feels local because it's like, the people I'm talking, the 50 people I'm talking to every day or whatever, it's our little microcosm. So yeah, sorry, that's kind of a long pile of words I just said, but the question that I'm trying to get back to is practicing self-care while keeping our activism alive. What does that look like for you?
I love what you said about like just being a spirit of being around centered of your friends and love. Shout out to my chosen family that they don't know it, but they help keep the light on for me. I definitely have to take a moment at times, and I really love on the people that love on me. And I don't take that for granted no more. I used to be very like, I was not intentional with my bonds. So part of my self-care is just being intentional, like with the things around me, because remembering that there's life outside of this, there's life outside, because I feel like I wake up and I'm this being. Like, I think to know as an activist is to know that we're all kind of like, we just wake up with the mic. We just wake up with that, bitch, I'm about to get you. Like, world, I'm coming for you. And like, it's nice to sometimes have friends that remind you to be like, hey, like, and put your shoulders down and love on you and hug on you. So I love to be around my chosen family. I love to do yoga, and I know and I'm not one of those like, yoga yogis that like pay a subscription or anything. Like I'll do the Nike train nap and I'll get in my zone. I'll go to the park and really get down. I think Black Swan is actually a lot of places. I used to think it was only in Texas, but Black Swan is this donation-based place that I go to. I support this queer Black trans yogi that is an instructor there. So I love to go to their classes. We call it queer church, gay church, because it's like a lot of us come there on Sundays, like at the 11 a.m. class too. And it's just I love fellowship community. And I also tell myself too that sometimes it's okay to just be quiet and be still. Like sometimes, you know what, this for me, it's not even that's not for me. My spoons and capacity, I was just riled up if I was just at the Capitol last week, I might not have it in me this week. And that's okay. Like it's so okay with checking in with yourself and telling that little voice in your head, like whatever is telling you that you're not doing enough, like kind of like disabling that. It's hard, but trying to disable that spirit of comparison, that spirit of self-doubt, because no one's judging you about you weren't Superman enough, or you weren't like, no one should be, like, and no one's like, we're all, shout out to any queer person that is doing more than just doing more than just being here. Like anyone that's doing extra, like surviving and like, shouting, like supporting like the rights and posting about it, like that's shout out to you. And then also shout out to you for just existing and trying to be here. Like like that whole judgment of like, I don't see them ever saying anything. Like those type of people, those folks are, I want to call them in and realize that no one is more of an activist than the other. Like no one is less of an act. Like that's not the approach or mindset to look at. And that's the best self-care for me, was to really stop comparing and stop thinking about, if I'm doing things out of positive intent and genuine love, like that's what matters. And that's what it is seen. And I love going, but Paige has been asleep by me this whole time, so she hasn't like jumped in my lap, but I love going with my cute little husky mix dog. I got her from, I don't know what she is, but I love going outside with her and she gets all the love and gets all the compliments, and it's fine. Like the queerest in me kind of doesn't like it, but it's fine. Like everyone says hi. So it's nice. Like I really just being present, going outside and remembering this is the life that I'm fighting for. So I sometimes just stop and enjoy I enjoy it. As the meteor is coming and the sky is falling and rain and it's literally in flames, I literally stop and smell the flowers sometimes, because I'm like, what else am I? And I know that sounds not in a sense of like I'm disassociating, but I'm not. Like I'm realizing that, okay, today I'm taking off. I'm not going to transform into Sailor Moon. Today I'm going to just be. And realizing that you don't have to be on all the time. Telling myself that right now as I'm saying to you, I don't have to be on all the time. And that's self-care. People forget that self-care is self-progress. People forget also too that like you are your best friend, your best being, your best everything. And if you don't worry about you and your spoons, then you're not really even the best soldier right now. Like you're not like, I don't really want you in the front line if you're not even at the best. Like if you're not caring about yourself, loving on yourself, like you really got to think about like, hold on, like, am I so I love that check-in. Shout out to therapy. I know, and that's a whole thing. I love doing resources on like helping folks that can't get into therapy, because I understand like with insurance and things about like, I love the free little groups that they have online. Catch you if those, I don't know, in the chat maybe have seen me on a couple of support groups, because I love just fellowship of trans folks coming together and being able to hold space for one another. That's That's my pastime when I have the ability just to sit and say hi. It's kind of like a pen pal thing, you know? So I love fellowship. I love seeing trans people have joy. That's part of my self-care.
I love all of those answers. I have some more that I've been jotting down. It's a combination of things the chat has been saying and some additional like practices that I also have. So in addition to like affinity-based support groups, like a trans support group, there's also various like 12-step or recovery groups that people could participate in, which has a very sort of structured offering for self-care. There are like breathing exercises. A friend told me about Wim Hof breathing recently, and it's been like rocking my world. And it's so cool how it's like psychosomatic. Like I spent 11 minutes doing this breathing thing, and then my mood just totally shifts. And I'm like a much more wonderful person to be around. There's meditation, and that comes in many forms, not just, sitting and being empty in your head, but there's walking meditation and all kinds of things, like even coloring or drawing can be meditative. Calling a friend on the phone and catching up, like just building those community connections, not because you're calling to like ask them to show up at the protest, but just because you're calling because it's a Tuesday. Like, those remembering to tend your relationships, just because it's enriching and life-giving to do so. Doing creative projects like working on your Legos you've bought and have been meaning to do forever, or your like diorama thing, like, whatever, just your little creative things. Maybe you got it as a holiday gift and you never did it because you never took the time to do it. Having time with either friends or like fellow activists, but the point of that time is not to do the work, it's to actually like relax together, like having that camaraderie time, the fun like rest time that's together, because then you're both resting and both having the fun. Sleeping and napping are also great things you can do for self-care. Always, forever, sleeping and napping. Something that has worked really well for me and the Clouder, which is the name of my community. I'm GenderMeowster, and then we're the Clouder, and we all do this brand called GenderMeowster, so it's confusing because GenderMeowster is me and it's also us. But doing the work in turns, like taking turns at doing it, so then it's not always any one of us, and then we have time to rest and pursue other things, but the work is still getting done, and so it doesn't feel like it's this like all or nothing, like I have to keep going because no one else is doing it sort of thing. And then someone in the chat mentioned they were going to go, speaking of self-care, they were going to go take a soak in a bath. So there's also like, what are your grooming routines that like make you feel good and make you feel happy, and like, like your body is presenting the way it's supposed to be in your mind. And that works for all the genders, right? Like whatever your grooming routine is. And then, the last thing I'll throw in is in my Discord server, we do have regular community events like every other weekend. Sometimes it's 3 weekends a month, whatever. We've got stuff going on, and people can just come and like do the trans joy and community thing. And it doesn't have to be about a specific activism thing. We just get to like share joy and community together. And I feel like all of those are like replenishing forms of self-care. And that's the other piece of that. So I want to give sort of a last call to the chat if there's any other questions people want to make sure they throw out there, because we are getting close to time for wrapping up today. But in the meantime, is there anything else, TheyBae, that we missed about your thoughts on trans rights and racial justice that you want to make sure that you say today?
First of all, this was like, thank y'all for allowing me to yap and go on, because I feel like I got covered a lot. And I love platforms that allow spaces like this too, because it's so important. If I didn't miss it, maybe like making a very focus on it is that, again, being complicit is just as being opposing. Complicitness is what's killing us. Complicitness is what's allowing us to be dead. Complicitness is what's allowing us to not be seen or valued. And I really challenge people to look within with that. Especially if you have the privilege of getting not all of us have that. So if you have the privilege of getting like therapy to help decolonize your colonism and your white supremacy, do it. Like there's therapists that literally on Psychology Today that say that they will do that for you, you know? So like just really, I feel like I did a lot of I want to remind folks that taking care of yourself is the best way to have the most enjoyable life too. So with that being said, because when you're happy, you want to make sure everyone else is happy and you're more motivated for the fight. I remember I had to really take care of my mental health before I was able to just be out here. You know, like I really had to have tools to reactivate my joy when I was having these moments, because I'm out like it's not fun being in front of people or dealing with people that truly don't like your existence, especially when depending on what role you're taking. So just really like putting in like the work for yourself to show up for your community. I think me and you both said some really amazing ideas of how you can just be a little bit more active, a little bit more. I always challenge my folks, how can you just be a little bit more active? How can you activate if it's activating your household? Some of us have roommates. If you have two roommates in the house that say nothing about abortion rights that intertwine with trans rights, then hey, y'all talk about it over the spaghetti. What they gonna do? Like, you know, like, like we gotta have difficult conversations. Like, it's so cool to talk about the weather. It's so great to have these surface level conversations, but also like maybe right now it's the time to not be like, I'm talking from a standpoint of what I'm going through in Texas, but I know that it's not butterflies and dandelions and wherever we're all at. And so I just think, thinking small. Okay, I can't help. You could maybe think like, maybe, man, TheyBae, I really can't help what you got going on over there. But I want to, I care. I give a crap about things. I want to support. Cool. I would really look within the disparities that are happening in the community that does not affect you. That's really a cool way to figure out what's going on. When you just look if you know that you're housed right now, I would Google something to do with the unhoused folks of, let's say, Indigenous folks. There's the news never will tell you about a missing Indigenous person. The news will never tell you about crime that happened to an Indigenous person. So that's a great way to start, especially folks that have tribes around them. I can go on and on about the true crime that happens with that, and how they don't acknowledge the crime that happens to not just the women, the kids, the young queer men, the young non-binary folks that are Indigenous.
Spirit, yeah.
Yeah, it's like there's no, you'll see how there's not a lot of documented. You'll see more articles about it versus you'll see news stuff. Right. So really just that. And I'm glad you asked me that question, because I have been really, really trying to explain to folks that folks that are Indigenous are here. Like they are here, and we are aiding in ignoring them. And I get the fight for all of us trying to be on the ladder. I get my Black life really understands it, but I am literally trying to pull this Indigenous person with me. And I think that we sometimes forget about that, because again, getting medical care for them on the plantations, on the tribe lands is so complicated to help with them getting, they have to sometimes be like, I have to leave my tribe just to get affirming gender care. And that's not fair, because sometimes leaving benefits that they have, that's leaving all they know. And that's not fair to some folks that it's not something they want to do, so we just doing our research. I really want to say that's my biggest takeaway too, is looking around about the folks. If you're a different race, look about the other races in you here. That's really where fellowship comes from. I really got, when I really started embracing my Caribbean Latinx community out here, when I started really wanting to learn more about how I can support my Southeast Asian community out here that are queer, it started really being like, how can we all support each other? It just was so beautiful to have a bigger family, a bigger chosen family. And also, so when I know things that, when I'm in a room or if they're in a room, we're thinking about each other. You know, like it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, because then it scares the folks that are like, whoa, I was not expecting y'all to all band together.
Yeah. Can you share an experience with gender euphoria?
Yes. I have that. Shout out to the folks. When I'm in HEB, I wear my short shorts, and when they be like, ma'am, I'm like, oh my God. Like, they don't think I'm just this one. Like when the old man, there's like this cute little elderly guys are in their like wheelchairs. Like I think they're like trying to like hit on the girl. Like I feel like it's like a trend. And like this, like the cute little elders are on there. The little motorized things at the store. And like if they don't see me and they don't see the front of me, they're like, excuse me, ma'am, or like, hey, legs. And I'm like, wow. And then I turn around with my full face beard. And I'm like, you know, this is a great moment. That's just my small gender euphoria moments when I'm like, I love that this is great. Like, it's just like, that's something just really was nice to me, because I was always growing up at one point thought like, I was like, I guess I have to be this way. Like I have to look as masculine as possible. And like, so it's so nice to like being this person who I am I can be who I want to be, whatever masculine is, whatever that is, like, you know, it's for me, it's nice. So I feel like I have it's so hard to think of an exact point, just because my friends really are good at supporting, I don't know, like I feel like I have spurts of gender euphoria a lot. Like, just like I'm glad I'm in, like when I walk around, when people comment, my mom commented my nails before I got on stage one time to perform. I think I almost cried. I was just like, wow, okay, this is what I'm talking about. Like, you know, like having mom actually be like, what? They're cute. Like, you know, and just not even just the whole physical thing, just feeling good. I love when I accepted that I was trans, it was just euphoric. It was just like, because I think I was just like battling, like I was like, well, I guess I'm not, you know, trans because I'm not doing this or doing that. And, you know, it was just really nice to have that divine understanding that you're not the next person. You're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to do something just because you see 10 other people doing, or you're not supposed to do something because you think that it was so nice to like break away from this binary construct of like what I'm supposed to do. And so I have these random examples of what's gender euphoria. And then like, again, I feel like being who I am and walking outside, telling insurance that my laser hair removal is gender affirming to me. And it's so freaking amazing to like have that anxiety uplifted from that, like having that medical procedure done. Like, so I think about things like I have little small examples, because it's like, oh, like I just remember a life of where I did not know none of this was possible. I didn't know that you could battle with insurance to get affirming things done.
Yeah, you can make appeals. All right. My last question for you is, what would you like to make sure folks know about your perspective on gender and non-binary, trans, and or gender diverse issues?
Well, my perspective is, if you're not loud, you're not doing too much. I always remember some people are like, oh, kill them with kindness, or just maybe like, you know, like, it's like, no, sometimes you have to be forthright, be radical, be that, you know, be the change that you want to see. So my perspective of it is that like, I always will be a person that holds organizations accountable, that holds people around me accountable, that holds it myself accountable too, you know, and I also hold space to be held accountable from my peers and from my loved ones. And I think that, like, again, like when we talk about trans rights, we're using that as an umbrella to mean that we're also talking about the Black lives, we're talking about the Indigenous lives, we're talking about the Latinx and the POC lives of those communities that are disabled, that are neurodivergent, that, like, we're not just saying like, okay, because I feel like sometimes that can easily get, we're talking about this, when sometimes the media makes, when you think of trans person, they only think you're talking about a trans woman. It's like, no, we're talking about trans individualism, trans lives, like, and really that's it. And that's my perspective. It will always be that you can't talk about one without talking about these things, and understanding that if I'm at the table, we all got to be at the table. Like, it will not work if we don't think like that. If we don't think that, we all are deserve to be here. So my perspective is to continue calling people in and out, because I'm nice. I'll call you in, but I will call you out if you are just needing it, to, understand that, like, we all need to be at this table, and racial equality is trans equality. And I want more equal justice for everyone across the board. Everyone marginalized, everyone undeserved, because we are here and queer.
Yeah, I love that. We have a sound command for the channel that says, "We're queer. We do what we want."
Yes.
It's so fun. I love it. Well, thank you so much, TheyBae, for being on the show today. Y'all, TheyBae is a radical community curator and storyteller. You can learn more about them at linktree/TheyBae. In particular, your Instagram is prolific. So please make sure to go drop those Instagram follows for TheyBae. Is there anything else, TheyBae, you want to make sure you promote while you're here today?
Yeah, let me see. This is a great time for me, because I'm actually not a lot going on. If you're in Texas, please reach out to me via Instagram. I would love to send you information on Austin Black Pride initiatives. And really, I don't have too much going on for me right now, which is a great thing to say. And my ask is to kind of follow my Instagram, keep in touch with what I got going on, because I get invited to do really cool stuff like this randomly, like this. Shout out to GenderMeowster. So I might be hopefully on somewhere else where I can just use my voice to impact change. And two, while I'm here, I want to shout out some organizations called What's in the Mirror. It's exactly how I say it, What's in the Mirror, with a question mark. And Algo. Those are some organizations that it would mean a lot to me if you took some time, look at them, check them out, see what they've helped me become TheyBae, and they saved so many lives, including mine. I want to shout out also to the ancestors that provided me to be a conduit for love and to have this conversation with you. I just feel really honored. And again, thank y'all.
Yeah, totally. Folks, we will try to get links for all of those organizations in the recorded version of this that goes up on Saturday. In the meantime, here is this week's Clouder query that you or the audience can answer on our social media platforms.
So the question is, what can you do in your community to make a positive change? And I know that's kind of like an open-ended question, but it's also simple too when you think about it, because cut and dry. What can you do? What can you do in your community to make a positive change? And I also want to put a disclaimer: positive impact. Positive intent can still create a negative impact. So definitely be mindful of that change, and definitely be mindful of if that change means just supporting someone already doing something, or how there's a collaboration involved in that or effort. I love to put that out there. But yeah.
I love that.
You want me to answer it?
If you want to, you can. What's your own answer for that?
What can I do to make it? By not being a gatekeeper to resources, not being a gatekeeper to healthy information and how-tos of how I do what I do in things. I love to let a person know how I got this sponsored, or, so that's how I love to. I don't want no one having to figure, just because I had to figure it out this way. I love to give you some steps so you didn't have to, I don't believe in that. You figure it out, or, not helping another person just because like they got to do it. Like, child, if I can give you 99% of it and that was like a whole template for you, like, so yeah, my way is to be a pinnacle of resource, be open and be approachable to giving the knowledge that I have gotten and other tools that I've gotten and networks that I meet. Like I'm not gonna not tell you that I know this cool person that can help you.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, thank you for being our guest today, TheyBae. Folks, next week's guest is going to be Dion Deviation, he, they pronouns, and we are discussing paganism and animism in gender diversity. Genderful would like to thank our guest for being on this podcast. If you'd like to catch us live, join us on Mondays at twitch.tv/GenderMeowster. Show notes will appear in the edited version of the show on Fridays on both YouTube and podcasting platforms.
If you have a question you would like the host to answer, or are gender diverse and would like to request an interview, please send an email to genderfulpodcast@gmail.com or sign up via the website at genderfulpodcast.com.
As a gender diverse community, the Clatter wants to assure our listeners that we are prepared to moderate our spaces. We will get positive and negative feedback on these shows and topics, and we have a moderation team on our channels, socials, and Discord server ready to deal with this.
Please join our Discord server at discord.gg/meowster to meet the community and get a regular digest of solidarity resources. You can also support us with subscriptions on Patreon, following and reviewing us on your favorite podcasting platform, or engaging with our posts and content on social media at GenderfulPod and at GenderMeowster.
You can take a few moments to also rate the show. We will post any 5-star reviews on our socials, so get creative. Mention a special interest of your own, a project you're working on, or even say hi to your comfort person in your review. What power!
This show is made possible by volunteers, tips, and subscriptions. Shout out to the folks helping us coordinate guests, edit the podcast, moderate the live chat, and post on our socials.
Artist credit for Genderful. Genderful's theme song is called Hope by Free Range Megs, aka Soma. The GenderMeowster logo was designed by That's Barnaby and edited with consent by Transgriffin. Genderful's pre-show is wrangled by JuiceTex. Genderful is edited and mixed by Transgriffin and Alexis Fandom. Genderful's social media is managed by Queer to Help. Genderful is hosted by Atlas O Phoenix and GenderMeowster. Genderful is the intellectual property of GenderMeowster. All rights reserved.
Trans rights are human rights. That's right.